All right, welcome into the Illini Inquirer Podcast, and this is how you know it is football season because J Leman is here, our All-American linebacker, our star football analyst, back for another season here on the podcast. Let's freaking go, Jay. How are you, man?
Let's go. What a great day to be alive. Or as former Illinois assistant football coach Joe Cullen, now the assistant defensive line coach for the Kansas City Chiefs, he used to tell us every day, guys, what a great day to be alive. But then again, isn't every day a great day to be alive? And that would be emphasized during the first week of football. So I know week 0 last week with a little K-State, Iowa State, with Kansas played a little bit. But this is really the first week of college football, some major matchups going on. And, of course, our very own Illini taking the field on Friday against Western.
Yeah, there's a fall crisp in the air this week. Football is here. There's more excitement here in Champaign-Urbana about Illinois football than there's been in a long time. Expectations are high for the Illini. 16 starters back. Most of the two deep is back from a 10-win season last year, Jay, and it all kicks off Friday night at Memorial Stadium against Western Illinois. Just take me in as a player. You had some really tough matchups first week. Missouri a couple times, and Rutgers once. I know you had, I think, Eastern Illinois one year, but what is that first game feeling like for a player?
Well, I do think it's different than offensive guy for a defensive guy. Offensive guys will talk about, we're just going to polish stuff up. We're going to run our stuff. They can run most of their stuff on air with timing, right? It's like boom, boom, boom. Like it could look the same on air as it does live, except you might get hit at some point. I think defensively, I'm always thinking I get to go hit live. I haven't hit live a ton, maybe a drill or two or a scrimmage or two. And so I think coaches and players defensively, you're always like, I've got to be a different level of intensity than what I've had the last 8 months. And you can call it intensity, you can call it game speed, but it's going to be faster than anything they've seen. And once you even go to conference games or Power 4 non-con, it's going to pick up more than Western Illinois, right? So I think getting adjusted to the speed of the game, number one. Number two, if you're a defensive guy, tackling, because you just don't tackle that much. And every coach will tell you, I want to see how we tackle. Yeah. Like, cause they don't get to see it, right? So they want to see how they tackle, number two. And then number three is if there are any critical situations, and if you're an Illinois fan, you hope there's not that many critical situations, how do we actually respond? Because I think those are the things you just cannot coach or really mimic in practice. And so those are the things that run through my mind.
This is an FCS opponent, Jay. We're not going to do a huge breakdown of this game against Western Illinois because they have so many advantages here, especially with this team that they have returning and where this program is at. But, like, what do you want to see in this game? For me, it's mostly about operation, cleanliness, like just running things clean. Like, what do you want to see Friday night as an Illinois observer?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, mental sharpness and lack of mental errors. Well, what's a mental error? A penalty, unforced error, a pre-snap penalty is a mental error. Having the right personnels out there. Hey, when we ask you to tackle someone in space, you should be a better athlete than an FCS player. Can you make a tackle in space and be clean? So not missing tackles, not missing blocks, taking care of the football, and, of course, keeping people healthy. Ideally, you play the starters the first half. Hopefully it goes well. You get some young guys, some game reps. People don't realize in developing programs how important those reps are because they're so hard to get real live reps. So I think that's what I'm looking for. When I think of Western Illinois, I'll give a mini breakdown because I got to see them in person against Indiana last year. And that's before we knew Indiana was great. I think they lost that game. Western lost the game 77-3. If anybody was watching on a Friday night in Bloomington, I was there. I watched it all. But I saw that Joe Davis schematically, I think that's the name of the head coach for, and he was at Eastern, and now he's at second year with Western. They offensively, they can move the ball. They have some scheme stuff. They can scheme some people up. I wouldn't be surprised to have them get some first downs, maybe get some points on the board. Defensively, they were an absolute train wreck last year. They ran like a 6-2 defense, which looked like something out of junior football, and the stats would show it was something out of junior football. I can say because I'm a junior football coach. So that corner is no longer there, and they've made some adjustments. So I think there's some unknown in that regard. Nothing that Lunney and Altmaier and co can't handle, but how do you execute those things, and how much do you show? Do you really want to go show everything? Probably not, but you want to show enough that Duke has to prepare for it.
Yeah, and Jay, this is a game also where, you could probably win this game just running the ball, right?
Sure.
And you think of this offense, but you do want to get like this is a test, this is a tune-up, right? You want to get your receivers some action. You want to see them down the field, make some plays, and see who Luke Altmaier can trust. So receiver, I think, will be locked in just to see who kind of plays, who gets the reps there. Is there any other position group you're really looking at going into this game?
Well, I'm looking at the left tackle. I know J.C. Davis is supposed to play. I think if I'm a coach, I'm probably in my mind, I certainly haven't heard them say this, I want J.C. to be 100% by Duke. Yeah. I think he might get a quarter of time. He might get a half a time. I don't know. I think they want him to be 100%. I think we have more. So I'm looking at left tackle. I'm looking at the interior of the defensive line. I think that's one of the biggest question marks we have. Listen, Gabe Backus is going to wreck plays in every game. He's going to be a wrecker on at least some plays. But what is the interior? I haven't seen James Thompson a live snap of him. I haven't seen Kurt Neal. I haven't seen a lot of these guys. Leon Lowry on the outside. I haven't seen a lot of guys play. Daniel Brown, even was here last year, I haven't seen play a lot. I mean, there's some guys. I've heard good things about Grant Bierman too, the linebacker. I mean, there's different things that I want to see, but probably the defensive line, and also who's going to win those corner spots. I feel like we got talented guys at the corner. You feel like you got the top 2 or 3 safeties pretty locked in, but at corner, I'm like, I can see other guys playing. So those are what I'm looking for defensively. And of course, receiver, we, as you said, we know there's going to be some competition there.
We haven't gotten to see a lot of practice. We've heard a lot. We've heard from these coaches a lot, Jay, and I know you consume some of that. Anything that you've heard throughout this training camp that's really caught your ear of like, oh, that's interesting. That's something with this team that, maybe I wasn't thinking about.
Rio Sanders is a guy that continues to come up. I think they call him Mario Sanders, but when I had first seen him in the spring of 2024, I know he had some injuries in the fall season. I thought he looked like an Isaiah Williams clone, really, at least in pads. I've never seen him face to face. He had a lot of production in junior college. I know it's junior college, but we've had good success out of Iowa junior colleges with Geronimo Allison and whatnot, and getting players out of there. I've seen his name out of a cloud of receivers, right? So for some reason, Brett Bielema has mentioned him a lot. Mm-hmm. So that has caught my attention. What has also caught my attention is the comments about James Thompson Jr. about him being as good as we thought he was going to be. I've kind of heard that. I've also heard, hey, I don't know where some of these linebackers are going to play because we actually have a lot of depth. Like, they're good. I think that's the challenge of this era, right? How do we keep people engaged? I think the 4-game redshirt rule helps us with that. Like, I didn't play at all, but hey, is this a game you get some reps for a guy? So that makes me feel really good when you think about Kanina Odeluga, but you think about Rosiak being back healthy. James Cruz, remember, has played but hasn't been 100% healthy. He's had clubs on the hand, but you saw Malachi Hood emerge. And so those are different things I'm just thinking about when I hear what is he saying. I'm also excited because it sounds to me like Matthew Bailey's kind of taking the next level and might be on par with maybe Sidney Brown level. He'll never be Sidney Brown from a speed perspective, but maybe on a productivity. And that we know is one of the most important positions in this defense with the run-pass conflicts they have to deal with on a weekly basis. And so that's what I've heard. And I've heard good things from the offensive line. Luke, we kind of all expected that, right, but we've heard good things.
We'll go through position by position here in a moment. But, Jay, I don't know if you felt this around Champaign. There's so much excitement and optimism, but there's also, because of the history of this program, just a level of nervousness and concern that the other shoe is going to drop at some point. And the closer we get, people were upset about where Illinois ranked and why they weren't above this team a couple of weeks ago. As we get closer to the season, even on our message board, I'm seeing people go, 7-5 or 8-4. That still might be a good season. What is your level of how would you break down your excitement / optimism compared to your concern / nervousness?
Well, I guess if I didn't know who Brett Bielema was, I think I'd be a little bit more nervous. Brett's always been a confident guy, but he has backed it up with what he's done in this conference at Wisconsin. We've had a level of consistency that we've never known in my lifetime with this program, maybe under Makovic when I was 3 years old, right, in a 4-year span. But I think that makes me a little more confident. I will say, I do think I'm not one of those guys who's ever said the schedule is easy. I don't think it is. I think the first 6 games, you could be 3-3, but still be a very good football team. Like your first road game is a Power 4 team. I still get mixed up with Power 4, Power 5. Power 4 team that won 9 games last year. Your first conference road game is a playoff team from last year, okay? Your first conference home game is against Lincoln Riley, who's probably a top 5 offensive mind in the game. You're probably going to have to score 30 points to win that game or more, okay? And then you've got the defending national champions coming in October, who, although I know we beat the defending national championships in Michigan last year, they got a little bit more coming back in the way of offensive firepower than what Michigan had. And so I think at Washington is a tricky game. I think Wisconsin, depending on how the season goes, could be a tricky game. Listen, anybody can beat anybody in the Big Ten, especially when you're at Illinois' level, and they know that. So I'm not a doom and gloom guy, but I do think wouldn't be shocked. I'm not going to hit the panic button if you lose 2 games in the first 4 or 5, as long as we look the part in different things. Do I think we will? Do I think we have the ability to win close games because of our offensive line and because of our quarterback? Yes. But that's kind of my initial take. I'm more confident, though, than I am than other seasons because of Brett.
The rivalries, the marching bands, the upsets. Saturdays just got way more fun. College football is back. Think you know the game? Put your knowledge to the test with DraftKings Sportsbook and turn your picks into big payouts. With live betting, rivalry week odds boosts, and more, DraftKings Sportsbook has everything you need to own every Saturday. If you want to make a wager before Illinois kicks off on Friday, you got 3 Big Ten games on Thursday. Minnesota 17.5-point favorite over Buffalo, Wisconsin 17.5-point favorite over Miami, Ohio, and Nebraska playing Cincinnati and Kansas City. The Cornhuskers 6.5-point favorites in that one, and the big game on Saturday, Ohio State 2.5-point favorite over Texas. Lines and odds subject to change. And here's something special for you first-timers. New DraftKings customers, you bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets instantly. So right now, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code Illini. That's code Illini for new customers to get $300 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. In partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-78-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. Fees may apply in Illinois. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. All right, let's break down these positions. Luke Altmaier, quarterback. How many quarterbacks in the Big Ten would you take over Luke?
You know, I know Aller gets a lot of love because he's played a long time at Penn State. I'm not sure I take him. I'm not sure I take Aller over Luke Altmaier. I really don't. I mean, Drew Aller's done well. He's also had 2 phenomenal tailbacks and a tight end that was the best tight end in the country, right? So I'm not sure I take Drew Aller over him. I think Underwood's a guy that just got named the starter at Michigan. Certainly a better athlete. I don't think he's going to be a better quarterback. I don't. You got Julian Sayin, who's unproven at Ohio State, but will probably put up big numbers. What's his name? Gronowski or something at Iowa. I'm not taking him. Minnesota's going to probably have a Minnesota quarterback that does what they do, right? So I'm trying to, Dylan Raiola, what's he going to look like in year 2? Who's the Oregon quarterback now?
Dante Moore, very talented. And that offense, you're going to get yards.
You're going to get yards. He's definitely not as experienced as Dylan Gabriel, but who is? So I'm not having a ton of names come to my mind here. And I will tell you, I don't know all the starting quarterbacks being prior to week 1, but he's at least in the top 2 or 3 for sure. And I think when you put in the game experience and leadership that he has, there's a reason Tennessee came calling after their quarterback left.
How do you think he takes it up another level, especially with working in a new group of receivers?
Well, I think the question that I've had with Luke has always been a guy that has been very good with his legs. Okay. So I think we know that. I think last year he had ability to be a clutch quarterback when we needed him. I'm talking, I've always thought that Kirk Cousins, for all the hate he's taken at Michigan State, might have been one of the most clutch quarterbacks we've seen in conference play for not being an overly talented guy. As far as the tangible, Altmaier reminds me a little bit of Cousins. I mean, I think it's a good matchup. I know nothing about him wows you, but you find him starting on multiple teams in the NFL. You find him just, making enough throws and can move a little bit, right? So that's why I like what Altmaier's done. I think what we need to do, because if you go back and look at where his throws are, it was, hey, it's RPO on the slant, and I throw a pretty good deep ball to Pat Bryant when I need it either on the fade or on the deep dig. Can we throw a deep corner route? Can we throw a deep out route from the opposite hash, right? If we need to do that. A lot of times, too, we have not had him do that because the protection hasn't been there sometimes to get the ball out. So when you have a line that can protect for longer periods of time, you have some of those double moves, some of those routes that take more time. Those could be something he could possibly grow in.
At running back, Caden Fagan and Aiden Lawfrey have certainly shown, Jay, they can do it. Like, they are high impact Big Ten running backs when they're on the field. Whether they can stay healthy for an entire season remains to be seen. But what if they are healthy? Like, what can that backfield be?
Well, this is the reason we lost Josh McCray, because Josh McCray felt like he was not, according to Brett Bielema, again, all I can go off is the press conferences, felt like he was not a starter in the program. And that was because Aiden Lawfrey really came into his own late in the year. And then Caden Fagan, when he's been healthy, has been a productive back. I think if you have that combination that can stay healthy and you sprinkle Khalil Valentine in, who has a lot of wiggle in the hole, I think that can be a deadly combination. The thing that has got me is that we have not, and this is an offensive line thing as well, at times, the last 2 or 3 games this season, we really got our offensive line playing together and running the football at will, whether it be South Carolina, Northwestern. At times, though, early in the year, we weren't doing that great. Some of that was running back. Some of that was offensive line. I think I've seen Aiden Lawfrey's playing with confidence now. I think that's the big thing for him. He didn't get much of a better football, he didn't get athletically, but he's playing with confidence. And number 2 is Caden Fagan. Can he be himself after getting 2 injuries, one to his shoulder, one to the lower body? I think he has a physical bruising style. Is he going to play without any second thoughts? I think that's something people don't think about a lot if you're not carrying the football, but you take a couple of hits and get hurt, that can be in the back of your mind.
Yeah. Wide receiver, Colin Dixon and Hank Beatty sound like they're, the reliable guys that they can trust. And it will be interesting. Colin can play a little outside, and I think he will more this year, Jay, but they ran through the slot in the first 2 years with Barry Lunney Jr. Do you think they go back to that now with Beatty, Dixon, and even Hudson Clement can play there a little bit, but how does that change the offense if they run more through the slot again?
Yeah, I mean, the first 2 years, it felt like everything was through Isaiah Williams at the slot, right? And then last year, Pat Bryant was more of an outside receiver. He could play inside if you wanted to. So you kind of reverted a little bit back to that. And then you had Zakari who could move around. I think there's something, if you picked up on it in a press conference, Brett made mention of, man, we were in 11 personnel a lot last year because of lack of depth of tight end, the injury to Cole Rusk. They had some younger players at tight end other than Tanner Arkin. Tip Ryman didn't come back for another year, which I think he could have. And so it kind of left them, we don't have a second tight end we feel great about to put in all the time. Now, if I have, just so I don't want to leave any fan behind here, 11 personnel is 1 tight end, 1 back, 3 receivers. That was kind of 2 big outside receivers, a slot, and your tight end, and then a running back with Fagan and Aiden Lawfrey. I can see even this year's a lot of mix-ups, meaning I can see 21 personnel where we have 2 backs and 1 tight end. I can also see 22 personnel, 2 backs and 2 tight ends, but then you take some of your receivers off of the field, right? I can also see 12 personnel where we have 1 back and 2 tight ends, one of them being Tanner Arkin, maybe one being Cole Rusk, and putting Cole Rusk almost in a slot position so that you can get a defense who sees, wait a second, they're in 12 personnel. I'm going to bring my base defense in. And then you get a Sam linebacker guarding, someone like a Cole Rusk in space rather than a nickel. So you can mix some stuff up. So I think first and foremost, you got to think about personnel groupings. Who's going to be in there and who's not going to be in there. I think we're going to see a mix of working the slot in there, working the tight end in there, but also having some outside receivers as well. So I don't necessarily have a great answer. That's why I think Rio Sanders I'm not sure he has the ability to go outside. I think Colin Dixon and Hank Beatty, if asked, can play on the outside. That's where I think Rio Sanders might get in the game. You go small, you go quicker with a Rio, with a Clement, with a Colin Dixon isn't smaller, but Beatty, right? So you do that, and is that what you do? You quick game and whatnot. And you have a Bowick and a Hollins and an Elsie who are bigger body guys. So you've got different body types in there. I start to ramble when I talk about the receivers because there's so much ground to cover, no pun intended.
Do you need a guy to emerge? I'm not even going to say Pat Bryant level, but someone to emerge to what Bryant was as a sophomore or junior at that position, at that traditional spot. Sure. He's a big receiver. Is that needed, or can they figure out a way to be productive in the passing game with that?
Well, I would say Pat Bryant, one, we've seen Lunney target different receivers in different years. So he's a guy that I believe is a players over play guy, meaning not so much the play I call, but what player am I getting the ball to, which I like that strategy. So I think he can change that. But you look at Pat Bryant, I think Pat Bryant alone was worth probably 3 wins last year. It's not many times that you can, and guys, I got a new computer. I still can't get the ding off my text messages, but I'll get that for next one. Even though I turn my phone off. But here's what I would say is definitely we don't win Purdue. We definitely don't win Rutgers without Pat Bryant. You can make arguments about other ones, but he was that much of a difference maker. And the question is, who filled that role in the bowl game? And I think Hank Beatty had a big catch early, had a tremendous catch in the fourth quarter, and Colin Dixon had a big catch for a touchdown. So they kind of both filled that role later in the year. Zakari had some big catches as well in that bowl game. So it could be a committee thing where they do that initially until somebody rises to the top and makes that guy. But I do think Hank Beatty and Colin Dixon will probably be the favorite on third down, unless Clement is the guy who, caught 50 balls at West Virginia. He could be that guy too. And I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to watch. I think we'll all figure it out together, including Illinois, over the first month with that receiver group. You mentioned the tight ends. They basically played one last year. I mean, Tanner played 90% of the snaps, Jay, on offense with how physical that he is. And then he played special teams for like 160 snaps too. Just an Iron Man. He's tough, smart, and dependable, kind of just incarnated right there. But now that you add some guys, Cole Rusk is one everyone's excited about, but they really like Davin Stoffel, Christian Abney. Both those guys sound like they're going to play in the rotation. I always think, we think about throwing to the tight ends. Illinois needs to throw to the tight ends more. But what can that do for the run game when you are able to play 12 personnel? Or what does that allow Barry Lunney to do? You're kind of mentioning it, of just getting creative.
So I'm going to mess up his name, but Stoffel's the guy to South Dakota, I believe, South Dakota State or something like that. And he's a true bigger body tight end, which basically allows you, when I add a tight end in the line, I add an extra gap. When I add another tight end, I add another extra gap, and that has to be accounted for. And if I can do that, and I feel really good about my 2 tight ends, we know we feel good about our 5 offensive linemen, and we have some depth there, then you can really get into big boy ball because you're saying, okay, you've got to block me, and I'm going to run inside zone or power or lead right at you, or counter or stretch whoever's in the game. And then you do that enough, and you start having to roll safety down. And you roll that safety down, and that's what's going to open up the post or the play action for Luke Altmaier. So I think our inability to run the ball consistently last year hurt our play action game. Didn't hurt our RPO game. It hurt our play action game. And I'm looking forward to that play action to take a shot when we're in that alumni zone in between the 40s, which Lunney tends to do. If you watch the tape, he likes to take a shot in that zone. And if you run the football, it makes it that much easier. And I think your run game opens up a whole lot more when you have that 12 personnel option. They didn't really have that option last year.
Offensive line, Jay, 5 starters are back. Very high expectations for this group with there could be up to 4 guys that go to the combine, but I think at least Davis and Priestley will be there. And one of the things I love that Bart Miller said was if your NFL guys play like NFL guys and dominate. With this offensive line, we saw the way they ended last year, but they didn't start very well. Is it more mentality than anything with this group for you, or what do you need to see out of it?
I guess the word I would have is intensity. There's at times where, and yeah, I remember college football players are 18 to 24 now, but 18 to 23 years old. When you're a high school player, you don't even have to be when you're a Division I player, you don't have to be intense to actually dominate your competition. But when you get up to a certain level of football, there is an intensity that you have to have for 7 seconds of violence that has to be better than your opponent. I always tell people, you can either be a really great athlete, or you can be intense. I was intense. Okay. So I think for me, I'm looking for that. And it's hard to gauge the intensity of an offensive lineman sometimes, but there seemed to be a different level of intensity later in the year, whether that be attention to detail, whether it be finishing the blocks, whether that be just a nastiness and we're going to pound the ball down your throat, than what I saw maybe in that Kansas game early in the year where we struggled to run the football sometimes. And so I think for me, I'm looking for intensity. Ron Zook used to say, if you consider yourself an A-plus player, you have to play an A-plus game, just like kind of what Bart Miller is saying. Hey, if you're an NFL guy, you got to play like an NFL guy, and you can dominate. But I think what comes down to it is an intensity, the ability you can go to an NFL practice and they're doing a walkthrough and be like, is this guy really that good? And you can see them flip a switch in a game where they're going full speed. And it's very intense. I'm looking for intensity out of that offensive line. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's the attention to detail. It's a lack of negative plays. It's no miscommunications. It's dominating your guy at the point of attack. I think intensity is what I'm looking for because the talent's there, but can they execute in that 6-7 seconds they need to?
With the start of football season, that means it's travel time for us here at Illini Inquirer. And you ever hate where you got to put that toiletry bag together and you're like, do I really need 3 mini bottles and a backup deodorant? Well, that's why I started packing smarter with Mando. Mando has a 4-in-1 acidified cleansing bar that has shampoo, face wash, body wash, and deodorant all in one bar. And it also works as a shaving lather. So really, it's 5-in-1. It simplifies your whole hygiene routine, saves space in your bag for fun stuff like snacks, extra shoes, all that stuff. Also, Mando's sweat control deodorant stick is fantastic. It stops odor before it starts, and it's more than just for underarms, guys. It has all-day odor blocking, not just masking with fragrance. It also fights sweat, so it gives you double protection. It's so simple. 1 or 2 swipes under each arm keeps you fresh and dry all day, and it's safe for all skin types. It's doctor-developed, it's high quality, and it has premium ingredients. This isn't your average deodorant or antiperspirant. It combats sweat, stops odor, and respects skin. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. And as a special offer for our listeners, new customers get 20% off site-wide with our exclusive code. Use code Illini at shopmando.com for 20% off site-wide and free shipping. That's code Illini at shopmando for 20% off site-wide and free shipping. That's shopmando.com. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Mando's got you covered. Protect your pits. Smell great doing it. All right, defensive line, you mentioned it's a new look group. It's kind of a group that I need to see. This first month, like figuring out what they have here. I think James Thompson is going to be very good. They're very excited about what he's bringing. But Kurt Neal was a starter at Wisconsin, but that group wasn't good at stopping the run last year. Tamu Adurajaye's and his 4th school in 4 years. Pat Farrell looked overwhelmed at times last year. Jeremiah Warren, kind of similar at times, though he was, I think, a little bit more solid. Now you had Angel McCollum, General Hunt's in the mix. It's just a group, Jay, that, this wasn't a great defensive line last year. It was good, like at times, and I thought they got some pressure on the quarterback with T-Raw and Dennis Briggs Jr., but they didn't stop the run all that well.
I mean, we were so thankful that can't remember who the offensive coordinator was with Kansas that they stopped running the ball. They tried to get cute and throw the football, right?
Yeah, Jeff Grimes going to save Wisconsin now. I had some doubts after that game at Kansas.
Yeah. So he got fired from Kansas, I'm assuming, right? Yeah.
Oh, he just moved on. Wisconsin
moved on. A mutual, I'm sure, right? I don't think Lance Leipold was liking it, but that's my take. But I would say this is when we talk about running, our lack of ability to stop the run. I remember when we were watching, I think the Penn State game as well. It's like, oh, please stop running the ball, right? Just don't hand it off to those, because it felt like we couldn't get a push and they were getting 6-7 yards. And then, of course, teams get impatient and want to start throwing the ball and whatnot. And so that strategy has worked. I want to be a little bit more stout at the point of attack this year. I'll say, from a guy who played too early in the front seven, I probably had no business playing as a freshman. I probably could have been, as a sophomore, a guy that rotated in and given intensity for short bursts and give 15, 20 plays a game at linebacker. But I played all those years and gave me some great experience. But I put Jeremiah Warren, I put Pat Farrell in that category. I think they can be good football players. I think they're young and they're developing. The closer you all are to the football, the older and more mature and strong you have to be. The farther you play from the football, whether it be corner or receiver, the younger you can play, because it's more of an agility game. And so when I think about those guys, I think they're going to develop. I think Joe Barton is a guy that, from a strength perspective, held his own. Can he do that this year? Then the other guys I haven't seen play at all, but I'm just wondering can we be in the interior, not on the exterior with Akis and Bryant and some other guys we have, can we be stout without a bunch of movement? Can we be stout without stunning? Yeah. I think that sometimes we've had to stunt to make ends meet, to try to make it move. That's my big question. And I think if we can do that as a backer, if you can be behind a guy who doesn't have to stunt and you know where he's at every play, it cleans up the reads for you. And I think the backers can play faster and better.
At outside linebacker, I think we're all expecting another great year for Gabe. He's going to draw a lot of attention, so that should give some one-on-one opportunities for a lot of other guys. What do they need opposite him with Alec Bryant, Leon Lowry, Joe Barna, Daniel Brown? I mean, it seems like a deep group with a lot of different flavors there, Jay. But what do they need on that spot opposite Gabe Akis?
Well, I think they say it all the time. I mean, you scheme up stuff you're always going to be accounted for on the defensive line or outside linebacker. But you dream of having a one-on-one situation on third and long. And when that time comes, you've got to beat your guy. There's just got to be times where you win in that matchup and get home. Like you said, Gabe is going to draw attention. I think Gabe will be chipped by tight ends and running backs. I think he'll be doubled. I think he'll have a lot of different things. I think they'll try to move him around on the defensive line as well to try to negate that. But I think if you're opposite Gabe, you've got to win. You've got to win when you're in a one-on-one. You don't got to win every down. But if you have 15 one-on-ones in a game, you got to win your fair share to get a pressure, a hit, or a sack, 1/3 of the time. Like, you have to win your fair share. And so, because they're banking on you to have a one-on-one and win that. So it's not like you're just going to come scot-free. You've got to beat your guy.
Yeah. All right, linebacker. It was a really nice, pleasant surprise that they played pretty well late last year after Dylan Rosiak got hurt. Malachi Hood, James Krutz, even Ryan Mead. I thought they all played their best ball. But I don't know if we talk enough about Rosiak's return. What's that mean for the defense, that you get your team captain, third-year starter back?
Well, I think Dylan Rosiak's a guy that's been very productive. I think year one, his first year starting, probably played a little bit early to be a full-time starter. At times got overrun a little bit. But what I like about when I talk about intensity, that's what I see from Dylan Rosiak. He's maybe not the biggest, maybe not the fastest, doesn't overwhelm me athletically, but he seems like a very intense individual and attention to detail. So I think he raises the level of the entire defense. And I think he's helped bring along the way they've seen him operate, has helped bring along Hood, has helped bring along a guy like Odeluga, has helped bring along Krutz. And so I think having him back in the middle is going to help substantially. Hopefully we keep him healthy.
What did you see from the rest of that group late in the season? And, what do you want to see from them as they try to parlay that into some momentum?
Well, I think Kenenna Odeluga is probably the best pass rusher kind of specialist guy. I think Malachi Hood probably has the highest ceiling. When you look at his overall athleticism and size and what he's put on, he's also a fourth-year player, I believe, at this time, right? And so he has the experience. And I think James Krutz, here's a guy I think that is rangy, has some length, has played now the past 2 years. But what I would want to see from Krutz is, one, can he stay healthy? Can he take on the point of attack like we need him to take on the point of attack? I don't think running sideline to sideline or coverage or blitzing has been an issue. It's been if they run the ball right at him. Now, some of that he's had an injured hand. He's been banged up. And so I never want to judge a player when he's hurt. But I also think he's older now. And if you're a junior at the Big Ten school and you're playing linebacker, you better be able to stop a run right at you. I know people are like, what do you mean? That should be easy. It's very hard to do against a physical football team.
The secondary, all 5 starters come back, and Xavier Scott had such a fantastic start to the season, basically won the Kansas game for you and was really good. But the guy who excited me the most was Matthew Bailey. Late in the year, Jay, just clicked with him. He started to do some of those, as you said, Sidney Brown plays, and in a different way. They're different players. What can a full year of Matthew Bailey playing at a high level do for this, and what do you think of him as a player?
Well, what was tricky about Matthew Bailey was he really didn't have a full year until last year, right? So he was sparingly as a true freshman, and then redshirted that year. He got hurt after like one series with Penn State. And so I saw the biggest thing I saw with him is his run pass recognition throughout the year. You know, you go back to maybe the Purdue game or the Kansas, it struggled because, you know, you've got to come up in the box and you've got to recognize run pass. And sometimes that tight end can be on a delay. Max Clare is playing Ohio State now, was at Purdue. He's open because you got caught up. He thought it was a run and pass. So I think first and foremost, it's his recognition. He's a guy that speed-wise, unless he recognizes it properly, is going to be behind, where a guy like Sidney may not recognize it maybe as fast, but had the speed to make up for it if he didn't. I think where Matthew Bailey's probably made the biggest jump is his ability to play fast. So you think he's faster than he really is. He's always been physical at the point of attack, but what I think you're going to see is his ability to recognize run pass, his ability to take the tight end, which a lot of times is his matchup in this defense, out of the game. And he's really a great complement to what Xavier Scott can do at nickel. I think you have those two guys. Xavier probably stronger in the pass coverage, weaker on the run, where Bailey probably stronger in the run, a little bit weaker on the pass, but they're matched up accordingly to who they're supposed to be. And it's a really good mix that they have because they do different things well in this defense.
I wouldn't say, like, Jay, this is the most, like, 2022, those were just ridiculous athletes, tenacious players, obviously, but Sidney and Quan are just ridiculous athletes. Devin Witherspoon, we know what he's doing. I don't know if they have that kind of talent back there, but they certainly have a lot of experience. And at corner, Caleb Patterson and Torrey Cox return as starters, very different players. Caleb, big, physical, long. Torrey, short, but insanely sticky in coverage. But then you had Jaheim Clark kind of come in here and play well late last season. What do they need out of those corners? You know, that weren't like the most dominating last year, but they felt like they were really sound last year.
Well, you're going to need depth at corner. We've seen this over and over with this defense, the way they play man, the way they're running, the hits that they take, the way they ask them to tackle. It's not been – and we've gotten under the third or fourth corner pretty quick sometimes in a game. And so I think Caleb Patterson's been, you know, really not a highly touted guy, but has come and really been productive for Illinois. In his time and been a good football player. Cox is a guy that's always in your hip pocket, and you would, I think, on any other team without Xavier Scott would probably be a great nickel because of his ability to cover the slot. I'm not saying he's out of position at corner because corners usually move over to nickel and nickels move over to corners. So you have a little difference. What I think of when I think about Jaheim Clark, though, is to me, he reminds me the most of Witherspoon with his explosiveness. There's a different kind of explosiveness out of Clark when I've seen him play. And I think that's what some of the coaches see. Yeah. And you got Miles Scott on the back end, who probably one of the more cerebral players that we have and very smart, but has made big plays when called upon. And I think Mac Rusetich, a huge recruiting find, gifted at a lot of different things, will probably have started at other schools and is here.
Yeah, the one thing that's interesting is I feel like Mac, there might be more playmaking potential out of him at that free safety spot, just athletically, rangy, covers a lot of ground. And what he did against Aiden Childs, kind of coming up and making tackles on him, was impressive. But, Miles, like, we're used to the 5 interceptions a year from free safeties like Kirby and Kendall Smith had. He's had 4 of the last 2 years, 2 pick sixes in 23. I don't know if there's as many big-time plays like that, Jay, but he also doesn't seem to make mistakes and seems to get everybody lined up. So there's a lot of value in that. So I know a lot of people are pushing replace Matt Resetich. I'd like to see a little bit more of him, but Miles Scott does bring value back there.
Well, this is what depth is, right? I mean, you feel like you have a guy there in Resetich who's pushing him and probably making Miles Scott better. Miles is obviously seen as a leader on this football team. Coaches speak glowingly about him, so he probably does a lot of things that maybe aren't as flashy. Resetich is a talented guy. He's just behind other talented guys at punt returner. He's, and he's also a talented guy at safety. I think Resetich, if you wanted him to, could actually play nickel at some point. I mean, he's that rangy athletic. From what I see, I'm not sure you ever put him there because Xavier Scott's there. But it's just interesting because you've got a lot of different players. You got to put them in the right spot and get them on the field.
It's what you want at every position, right?
Right.
You want depth like that. That's a good problem to have. Last thing, we can't not talk about special teams. David Alano, kicker, was a very good positive last year. Hank Beatty at punt returner was a positive. You hope you upgraded at punter, right? With Keelan Crimmins coming in, and we'll see what happens with kick return. Illinois doesn't return kicks all that often, but we know, Jade, margins happen here on special teams. It's 15 to 20% of the snaps, and this is an area that Illinois is going to have to succeed in again if they want to win those close games.
Yeah, I'm most excited to see Crimmins punt the ball. I know that he was a bright spot for Purdue last year. He's experienced. He's playing the Big Ten, and it's one player that can probably give you 20 to 50 yards more hidden yardage in a game than maybe you had last year if there's 3 or 4 punts a game. So you're thinking, okay, this guy could really maybe make a difference for us. I think our return game was the best I'd ever seen our return game when it came to punt return under Hank Beatty. I think he should have been all Big Ten. I think that was a joke that he wasn't. So I think you feel good about that. You think Robbie Disher's now in his 3rd or 4th year here. Third. And he's done a really good job. And so I feel like it's been a weapon for us. Alano is a guy that supposedly is hitting 60-yarders in practice. We've been told. He beat out Machuski or whatever his name was, who's gone now and is battling somewhere else. And that guy had a huge leg. So you feel like you got your specialists lined up, keep them healthy and give them some early success and some confidence. They'll be good to go.
With the fall football season here, my days are packed. When I'm not chasing the Illini around the country, reporting on them, or doing the podcast, I'm chasing my kids around. So between my busy schedule and their crazy schedule after school, sometimes all I've got is a couple minutes. And Factor helps me eat smarter with tasty, chef-prepared meals that are dietitian approved and delivered right to my door. And now, with more than 65 weekly meals made for how I live and what I like to eat, I've got even more ways to fit in a real meal wherever the day takes me. And now Factor has more variety and more meals. Choose from a wider selection of weekly meal options that include premium seafood choices like salmon and shrimp at no extra cost. And savor global flavors. For the first time, try Asian-inspired meals with bold flavors influenced by China, Thailand, and more. For more choices to better nutrition, that's why 97% of customers say that Factor helped them live a healthier life. Feel the difference no matter your routine. So eat smart at factormeals.com/Illini50off and use code Illini50off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That's code Illini50off at factormeals.com for 50% off plus free shipping. Get delicious, ready-to-eat meals delivered with Factor. Is there anybody else, like any other player that really interests you going into this year, Jay, that we didn't hit on?
I think Des Schuster is he's a guy that I'm like, man, he's just wide, he's big.
I tell you what, Jay, nobody's name intrigued me more because I went into camp not thinking about him because he's injury issues, all of that. They had added some transfer tackles. I'm like, so maybe he's a backup guard, maybe he's in the 2 deep.
Sure.
When he goes to tackle, when he gets back, and they're like, hey, we got something here. That's really intriguing.
Really intriguing to me. I mean, I think that's a guy I wasn't necessarily. I mean, this line has been overused, the bingo card line, but it wasn't on my bingo card line, for the bingo card for this year. Des Schuster. I think for me, in watching Daniel Brown's JUCO tape, what his ability to beat one-on-ones opposite of Gabe is really intriguing to me because of the back injury last year. Really was limited on time. I've heard his name here and there. I don't know how many reps he'll get, but I'm interested in him and Barna as well because I thought Barna from a physical aspect, was able to hold his own as a true freshman. That is a rarity. I believe it was a true freshman. Was your redshirt last year? I'm not sure.
True freshman, yeah.
So I think that for me, those are the intriguing things. And I know that's probably boring because it's offensive and defensive line, but those are the things I'm really looking for. And we do have a guy that in Hudson Clement that caught 50 balls at West Virginia, and we do have a chance for Justin Bowick, who didn't play a lot last year because he knew he wanted to get another year, but was pretty explosive 2 years ago. And so those are different things I think about because I just haven't seen him play. Yeah. And I think the big thing is everybody's like, man, it feels like Luke Altmaier is a big piece of this team. So keeping him healthy is huge.
For sure. Barry Lunney's 4th year as offensive coordinator. Is it his last? Probably depends on what happens and what jobs are open. But what does that do? What's another level this offense can take? Is most of these guys have been in this offense for almost their entire college careers now.
Yeah, so I think when you can I think Barry Lunney's had a better offense every year. It seems like they had that dominant defense in 22, but he's done a great job of developing his quarterback. And when I look at it, I think if we can get the run game going, so just a little thing here, Illinois can run zone blocking, but they also run a lot of what we call gaps scheme blocking. That would be the traditional plays of lead, of power, of counter, but they'll run it out of the gun. And what I have seen from a linebacker and strong safety perspective, that the amount of conflict you can make in a gap scheme RPO system is very, very difficult to defend for a linebacker. So a linebacker is going to read the guards. He sees a guard pull. It's got to be power. It's got to be counter. And he's downhill fast. Well, Luke can pull that ball and bang the slant right behind him to Hank Beatty this year. I think it makes it a lot harder from a gap scheme perspective if you can run power counter than a zone. Zone, the linebacker is going to shuffle, horizontally to the line to beat, make sure he's got leverage on the ball carrier, but he doesn't have to attack downhill with the same aggressiveness like you do in a gap scheme offense, is what Barry Lunney runs. And we were not able to run counter at times or power when we wanted to or lead. But if we can do that, coupled with an RPO, then to slow that linebacker down. It only takes one time where you bang the slant behind him when he read run and now you bang the slant, that he slows down. Now I'm slowing down. I can't come down and hit that lead right away and spill it to my safety or hammer it back to my other defensive lineman. I have to then hesitate a little bit. And that's when the running back can get to the line of scrimmage without having to cut at all. Yeah. When you can make the running back cut before he gets to the line of scrimmage, it's usually a no gain or negative play. But when a running back can actually make it to the line of scrimmage without having to cut once, because the linebacker didn't come and hit the lead fullback or the lead guard or tackle on the pole, you're going to have a 4 or 5 yard gain at least. And you get Caden Fagan up on a defensive back, watch out. It could be a very big play. That is a long drawn out thing to say, if we can run the football in the gap scheme, coupled with the RPO, and also put in the 2 tight ends with some extended play action and max protection. I mean, we're keeping 2 tight ends and a running back in to protect, and it's 2 guys on the outside against their best 2 guys. I think we can take another step offensively in play clock and controlling the game and taking some deep shots down the field. And so it's hard to break down that in a word or 2 without giving the background explanation of what makes Barry Lunney's scheme so good. But ultimately it comes to that and the run pass conflicts that it presents to those defensive players on the second level.
Jay, you explained that incredibly well. And you do it so well. So I want to ask you this question for people that want to get smarter at football and know the difference. If you're watching a game, what are you watching to see if it's gap scheme or zone scheme? Are you watching the offensive line and where?
Yeah, great question. So there's only really 2 blocking schemes in general, right? So you have schemes and you have plays, right? So like, what is our play? Now you can run a zone play will look like all the linemen going in one direction, kind of like elephants on parade, and moving the A gap from here to here, right? And so in order to make sure I don't get out of my gap, a linebacker will have to shuffle to make sure, okay, that A gap moved from being on the hash to being in the middle of the field now. And so I've got to shuffle. It's more horizontal, and then I attack downhill. What I'm going to see when it comes to a gap scheme is I'm going to see what we call a pin pull action. You'll see Josh Kreutz block down on the defensive tackle, and you'll see Gesky pull around, right? Pin pull. That's what we call a gap scheme. There's 4 or 5 plays traditionally in a gap scheme, and there's 2, 3, 4 plays in a zone scheme. In a zone scheme, you're going to have inside zone. You're going to have outside zone. Inside zone, they're going to try to cut it right back behind the center. Cut back behind the center, start right, and then they're cut back. Outside zone, they're going to sprint to the outside and try to get the edge. You're also going to have the zone read play, which is out of shotgun. You're going to hand it off to the running back, or the quarterback's going to pull it and go around, right? What's difficult, though, is those are some of the zone plays that you run. The gaps plays will be your traditional plays of like, okay, it's either going to be out of 2 back, there could be a lead play where like a 1 back leads up, another back leads there, okay? It could be a power play where, hey, they run the power, meaning the guard pulls around and the tailback follows the guard. It could be a counter play where either the guard and tackle pull, or maybe the guard and tight end pull around, and they're going to pull this way, and the other offensive linemen are going to block that down that way to get angles. So when you're watching a game, if you see all the linemen moving in one direction, it's probably a zone play. If you see multiple people going different ways where they pull around and down block, it's probably a gap scheme. We can do both at Illinois, but I think what makes us most effective and what Chase Brown a lot of times had some of the best stuff on is our counters, our powers, and different things that allowed him to come downhill and hit that hole great. And I think Caden Fagan can do that well, and Aiden Glover can do that well. You'll see both of it depending on what game we're in. But I always thought that the gap concept puts the conflict of the linebacker, the run pass conflict makes it much more difficult, because if you don't come and attack that right now, you will give up a positive run play. And if you just say, I'm going to attack it right now, and the quarterback reads it, and you have a veteran quarterback, and you run that slant right behind you, now you're really leaving out your defensive back who has to guard the deep route. So he's not going to be up and bump and run. And so the slant will be open, but he's counting on you, the defensive back, for you to be at least in the passing lane to make the ball arc a little bit so he has more time to run. Now that ball can be thrown on a rope. There's no chance for the DB to make the play, and it's a first down. Lots of different things that work together in team defense. I hope you can track that. Yeah. If we could go through, maybe we'll show some examples when we break down some tape after games of what I'm talking about in the run pass conflict that makes it so difficult for a linebacker.
It's fantastic, Jay. Appreciate when you break that down for everybody, and just always clarifies things for me too.
It's a hard thing to do. And I even heard, it's funny because I heard Nick Saban, who I think is one of the best analysts in the game right now, and has the right to be and can kind of say whatever he does. He even said at Alabama, he said, we were fine in the run pass option if we were playing his own team. But we had taught our linebackers, if you see pull, or you see this in the gap scheme, it's very difficult to play that. And if you can run the ball out of counter and power, and you have linebackers that need to come up and hit it, well, that slant's going to open up. So I think it's not just a thing. This is a thing that coaches are dealing with on the defensive side of the football if you can run the football. So it's not just an Illinois thing, but it's something that we talk about.
All right, last thing with Illinois, and I want to ask you about the big game this weekend. Aaron Henry's defense took a big step forward. It was maybe choppy, maybe some inconsistency, Jay, from game to game. But, man, he had some really good games, including South Carolina, Kansas, Michigan State, some really good games. And I think the staff is strong with Terrence Jamison, Archie McDaniel. Obviously, Corey Parker came in last year. What is the next step for Aaron Henry's defense and, his career as a play caller here? 30 years of defensive coordinator. And there's not a lot of continuity at these positions in the Big Ten, and Illinois has 2 of them that have been here a while.
I think this is the next step. The first game, his defense, they lost Illinois some games. Last year, the defense didn't lose Illinois games, but they didn't necessarily go out and win games other than maybe the Kansas game with Xavier Scott's phenomenal effort. This year, I expect the defense to go out and win a game where the offense, for some reason, just doesn't. There's always going to be 2 or 3 games where it starts slow. You don't execute like you want to. You have a couple 3 and outs. Somebody drops a pass. I hope that doesn't happen, but it happens. There's no energy on the offense. The next step is, can this defense go out and win multiple games? If they can go win multiple games, 2 or 3 games with this defense, this will be a playoff team. Because the offense is good enough by itself to win 7 or 8 games. You win 2 or 3 games with a defense that takes the next step. So the next step is them going out and winning games for this team. The way they played against South Carolina, they was more like, okay, we'll let more games are won than lost. More games are lost than won because of mistakes. Hey, Jaden Daniels at Kansas, make your mistake. Sellers at South Carolina, throw the football and beat us. Daniels, throw the football. Other people, throw the football and beat us. See if you can beat us. We're not going to get at the big play. I think that works. I think you're going to win a fair share of games. There's a lot of defenses that do that. But I think to be an elite team, you've got to have a defense that goes out and wins the game. I'll give Ohio State, for example. As good as their offense was with Jeremiah Smith, Jack Sawyer on the defensive line won some games for him.
Yep.
Because of the defense. Whether that's a turnover or a pick six or a big stop, you've got to have an elite defense to be an elite football team. And so I think winning games is the next step for this defense. And I think they know that. And I think they have the experience to do that this year.
Great stuff. Because I think that is the next step. Because it was good. It was solid. It was sound. Now it's, do more of the Kansas stuff. Because if you can do that, man, that's when you do start, having top 25 offense, top 25 defense. Jay, that's what we're talking about with playoff teams.
You can win if you can win a game with your defense, 2 or 3 games with your defense. It changes just like if a quarterback can get 2 or 3 first downs with his legs. It's those margins, right? We can make an argument that special teams won a game for us in the Michigan game, right? Like those things add up, and so if you can win in the margins like that, I think that's big. I think the defense, they certainly have the experience to do that. I guess the big question is, if I need a play other than Gabe Backus and maybe Matthew Bailey, and Rosiak's solid, but if I need a play, like I need to get a sack or I need a pick, who is that guy other than those guys? You felt like Sidney Brown was a guy. You thought Devin Witherspoon was a guy that could be. You thought Johnny Newton at any time could be a one-man wrecking crew. And so I think you think about that. You think about disruption. When I think defense, you can't just be out there. I tell us to my 8th grade football players all the time, listen, on defense, you can't just be out there doing your job. Okay? Do you have to do your job? Yes. But every play, you've got to believe that it's your play. And you've got to make something happen. They don't call plays for defensive players. They call those for offensive players. Defensive, you're going to call each play in general that's you believe is going to put you in the best position to make a play. And it's up to you to go execute that. That comes down to preparation, practice, everything I've done, and then my intensity during the game. If I do that and execute at the right time, I will be disruptive. Offenses hate disruption. They hate being banged off routes. They hate negative plays. They hate penalties because it messes up their script. It messes up what they do on air when it looks so pretty in 7-on-7. Like, that's what you have to do. You have to be disruptive, and you win football games that way.
Great stuff. Before I let you go, Jay, there are some interesting games this weekend. Northwestern, Tulane, Northwestern an underdog in that one. Utah at UCLA is an interesting one in the Big Ten. But obviously, Texas at Ohio State in Columbus. Big noon kickoff on Fox, 11 a.m. Central Time. What do you think of that one? Who you got?
It's so hard in year to year of like without reading Phil Steele's books or listening to you and what team is what team.
Who's playing on what team? Yeah.
I will say this. I'm probably going to give the nod to Texas because of the experience at quarterback. I got to see C.J. Stroud play his first game against, I believe, Minnesota, and he was good, but he wasn't the level of Ohio State quarterback you're used to seeing. I don't care if you got the best player on the field in Jeremiah Smith. Sometimes it can be easier I think he's going to make his catches. But I think Texas with the quarterback position, I like Steve Sarkisian as an offensive mind. He schemed me up in the Rose Bowl. I certainly know that he can actually call some plays, and he'll have some stuff ready for it. Ohio State's always going to have athletes, and they'll be reloaded as well. I'm going to take Texas in this one, even though I'm not a huge Texas fan. I just think at the quarterback position, they have an edge.
Jay, it's great to have you back, man. Can't wait to catch up next week after an actual game.
Always good, buddy. Take care.